I remember back in 1999, we were all on a holiday, and this is elitist, a very privileged set of people, right? These were all IIT, IM bankers. We all came to a conclusion that, and our salaries those days must have been 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs a year, maybe 7 lakhs a year, that if you had 50 lakh rupees in our bank, we would all retire. We'd go find a beach house, and which has been the sort of the plan. And that number looks so ridiculous today. Somebody needs to be your co-driver on that journey. It's not necessarily only your spouse or your partner. An external person who's seen many people go through this is a good advisor to talk to. I started my career at a company called Madura Coats. Those days, when you left sort of the MBA campuses, top jobs were these sales jobs, Asian Paints, Unilever, and so on and so forth, and Madura Coats being one of them. Today, there is such a buzz around investing in India, which is good in a way that people are experiencing it, but SEBI is regularly saying that 90% people are losing money in futures and options, but people are still doing it.
Hello, and welcome to Money Skills by Scripbox. I'm Swati, Growth Marketing Manager at Scripbox, and today we have a very special guest with us. Please welcome Mr. Atul Shinghal, founder of Scripbox, and today we'll deep dive into his personal wealth journey. So let's get started. Many people would be curious about your early days, right? So, can you share a bit about your childhood and how that has shaped your journey today?
Thanks, Swati. Good morning to you. I have had a very privileged childhood. I am the son of an army officer. My father retired as a lieutenant general. And I was actually privileged to go to pretty good schools. I went to boarding when I was 7, went to Mayo College, went to IIT Madras, went to IIM Bangalore. But being from an army background, while it's very privileged, also teaches you the frugality of money. Right? You're always on a shoestring budget. Though you live a very comfortable lifestyle and you play a lot of sport, you actually don't have any money. Right. To the extent when my father had to put us through boarding school, like my elder brother, who's also serving lieutenant general, went to Doon school, he actually sold his car. And when then that didn't do, he actually stopped the newspaper budget. So from the very beginning, as a child, we've always respected money very heavily.
Great. So you've built a career around helping others invest wisely, right? So when did you first start saving and started thinking about investing per se?
Actually, in a sense, too late. We were the sort of the golden generation when the liberalization just happened in 91, but also in 1992, the Harshad Mehta scam happened. Right, so we were very scared about the capital markets, and we were skeptical. I somehow missed the memo when I was at college and MBA, though I'm a major in finance as an MBA. I didn't start investing early enough. Yes, I did buy my first LIC policy from my first salary. The investing journey started pretty late. So after I could actually start earning a decent salary is when I started.
So what all companies have you worked with and how did they shape you or shape your investment journey?
So let's start at the very beginning. I started my career at a company called Madura Coats. Those days, when you left sort of the MBA campuses, the top jobs were these sales jobs, Asian Paints, Unilever, and so on and so forth, and Madura Coats being one of them. And I started my career selling thread. My father, God bless his soul, used to say, "Dhaga bechta hai." Right? I thought I was a very cat's whiskers with all these. But somehow, again, the Madura Coats, though being a British company, had a very privileged life, right? You got a company car, you got a company house, but you got very little money, right? So I actually didn't start saving or didn't invest very early. From there, I was lucky enough to move to a company called Standard Chartered in credit cards. And the irony was that while I was building my career, giving people credit, but that gave me enough money to start my own investing journey. So I first remember actually started saving and investing from my salary from Standard Chartered. And my actual serious first investment was made through one of the co-founders at Scriptbox or at the other company we have founded together, Ravi and myself. And he was a professional manager. He started. From there, I actually moved to a company called Capital One, which posted me in South Africa. I spent 8 years there. Capital One had a joint venture with a group called Old Mutual in South Africa. Played various roles, largely in the retail lending space. Worked with American Express, worked with microlending, different jobs. But as a banker, salaries are pretty comfortable. And as you get more senior, and I got lucky. I was the managing director of a bank by the time I was 35, earning a lot of reasonably good salary. And that allowed me to sort of figure out how to, and as you were meeting people, right? And you realize that within the bank, the guys who were doing well were people who were planning their investments, thinking through money and thinking long term. So the various companies I worked for have shaped my thinking about money. I came back to India in 2008. I had served my tour of duty in South Africa to actually set up Old Mutual's asset management company. We'd applied for a SEBI license and the works. And ironically, the Lehman Brothers things happened. So we had to shut that down. I became footloose and fancy free. And that's a separate story I'll talk about, which is Scriptbox. So I became an entrepreneur by accident. I had come back to India, didn't want to go back abroad again. And then obviously, as an entrepreneur, I've got two startups. One is called Pro 42, the other is obviously Scriptbox.
Yeah. So every successful journey has its own share of missteps. So could you share with us any mistakes that you would have made early on and your learnings from the same?
I think two mistakes. One was about not understanding and being a finance major, not completely internalizing the power of compounding. Right, start early, keep investing, stay invested, which I repeat ad nauseum now in all every time I speak. I didn't learn that early enough, right? So you are more busy, what are meeting obligations, but not thinking about saving and investing as an integral part of your lifestyle choice. Right, that was the first mistake. The second was actually doing what everybody at that time did, was get an LIC policy. Right, I got my first LIC policy from my second or third salary, and I thought I was very clever. I got a money back policy. The sum total insured was 5 lakh rupees. The princely sum, I don't think you can take a holiday. I mean, you can't even
Yeah.
buy a business class seat for that amount now. But I did take an LIC policy. So that thinking, confusing investing and insurance as one, which a lot of people even today make, were my mistakes. I mean, so yeah, not starting early enough and not saving enough, and that LIC policy always rankles in my life.
Okay. So looking back, do you feel you missed any opportunities that you would go back and correct?
Not specifically, as I said, had we started investing in 1994, 95 rather than in 99, and that 5 year run which India had would obviously have been fantastic. But luckily, because I had a professional investor manager, I missed the 2000 bust. So yeah, so I think not starting early enough again is the only thing I would go and correct. Uh, did make a couple of investing choices. I remember buying the Internet Opportunities Fund in '99 and putting a reasonable amount of money in that. And in 2001, that was worth zero. I mean, I've tried to trace it again after so many years, but I've never been able to find that money. Yeah, so actually making a couple of bad investing choices, not starting early, other big mistakes. I would definitely correct if I could.
So how do you determine how much you need to save or invest in order to achieve your goals or future plans?
I think the answer lies in two parts, right? One is just the basic truth that your saving your investment is like paying rent or like eating food. So an X percentage of your monthly income has to go into savings. The number I now actually tell everybody, especially youngsters and people who can afford it, is or not even afford it, is 20%, and that number should keep going up every year, right? As a percentage of your income because as you grow, as your salary grows, hopefully it grows faster than your expenses. So you should be able to put aside more money than. So if you were saving 20, it should become 22, then 24. For me, as I said, because of the career I've had a couple of lucky breaks, which allowed me to put aside large lump sums pretty early and reach a comfortable corpus when I became an entrepreneur. Right. So I don't have a specific answer about the number. The number you need has also changed over time. I remember back in 1999, which was like many, many years ago, we were all on a holiday, and this is, without sounding elitist, a very privileged set of people, right? These were all IIT, IM bankers. And we were on a holiday, and we all came to a conclusion that, and our salaries those days must have been 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs a year, maybe 7 lakhs a year, that if we had 50 lakh rupees in our bank, we would all retire. All right, we'd go find a beach house, and which has been the sort of the plan. And that number looks so ridiculous today, right?
Yeah.
At in hindsight, and yeah, that number has changed over time. Every family has its own number, so I'll leave that aside. But the ability to determine what will it take to retire, and by retire I don't mean retire means that you can choose to not earn a regular income, is what retirement means. You can choose to earn income the way you want for you and your dependents, putting your children through college, the right college where they can go to. And so that's been the number we have worked around. Yeah, and I think at every point in time I've made sure that there is a certain bank balance and I get, I mean, literally palpitations if that number is not there as invested amount.
Right. Mostly as Indians, or maybe just say as humans, we associate achieving a certain corpus, right? Like most of us, we see if 1 crore as a corpus if we have like we've achieved something. So, would you like to share your journey of like memorable moment when you made that first crore in your wealth?
Oh yes, absolutely right. I mean, this is and it's serendipity. We were in South Africa. Actually, I don't believe in buying property. So, in spite of God being so kind, we really don't. We live in a rented place even today. We live in a very very nice place in Bangalore, and but I've somehow not found the logic of putting say 10, 15, whatever crores into a into a property and having a 2%, 3% rental yield. So anyhow, to coming back to the story to the first crore, we had bought a property in South Africa, and again pure luck. When we arrived in South Africa, the interest rate was 17%. The rand to dollar exchange rate was pretty unfavorable, and we were paying a rental. And suddenly, and I was a banker, and the interest rates dropped by half, and I used to get a discount on the mortgage. So it made more sense for me at that time because my mortgage was far lower than my rental. So I bought the property, and things again changed. So we were able to sell that property in say a 3 to 4 year period. As a banker, got some decent bonuses. So suddenly, overnight, probably at the age of 32 or something, you had that crore in your bank, right? And which felt fantastic. It did not, I had not planned it. It was not that I had saved up methodically, which is quite funny. But that taught me that you can respect money, and then from there, obviously, we've been saving regularly.
Great. So as you rightly mentioned, like a couple of minutes before that, you and your friends had that thing that 50 lakh would be the corpus that you would like to retire with, and it's definitely changed over time, right? So, in current scenario, like, do you think that financial corpus needs to keep getting reevaluated or changed, and why should people do that?
I think yes, it needs to for two reasons specifically. One, so depends on who's done your planning for you. So if somebody like Scriptbox has done your planning for you, and you've got a professional person on your side, it won't change much because you would have thought it through. You would have asked all the questions. But even then, as you grow older and your corpus grows, the things you want to do with that corpus change, right? You probably want to move to a bigger house, just choice. You probably want to start giving away a lot more than you have planned for, right? So those are numbers which change if you've got a professional planner. If you've not got a professional planner, the number changes very regularly because you just don't budget for many things which come along. Like a foreign education, right? Your children are in school, they're in grade 4, grade 5. You've thought, okay, I'll afford it, right? Even today, I can talk to people and they'll tell you that I've put a crore aside for a child going to college next year abroad. They just don't realize it's 3 crores. And when you
Yeah.
actually face that reality, so people underestimate a lot of costs. Even for retirement planning, for example, we always say that people will plan for a certain amount of expense. They won't plan for inflation, right? So fixed deposits will start eating of their money. They won't plan for regular upgrades. And what I mean by that is if you're living in a home and you retire at 55 and you want to live to 95, every 10 years your house requires some development. You're probably going to change your car. So because you've not thought through your long-term needs in a systematic manner, the corpus changes, right? So I think, again, in summary, without sounding like a sales guy for Scriptbox, getting a professional to work with you, thinking through scenarios, thinking through possible contingencies. Nobody planned COVID, right? So suddenly in COVID, your expenses did increase if you unfortunately had an illness in the house, right? And then medical care is going up. So yeah, three things: one, unplanned expenses; secondly, the ability to do more with money and hence the desire to have more; thirdly, bad planning, right? You just because you want to upgrade your lifestyle, right? That's what happens.
Right. So an integral part of all this planning, like SIPs, are something that's been recommended, and it's also like what people have started following very aggressively now. So, what's your experience with SIPs, and how did that fit into your overall strategy?
So I've had two phases of SIPs. As I said, I started late, but once I started in say 2001, for the time I was a banker in a professional role, I was very disciplined about my SIPs. Apart from the lump sums which we made, I was very disciplined about my SIPs, and I'm a big believer in that. Right, and I tell everybody that you have to have that 20% I was talking about, or 25% has to be the regular saving which goes into a long-term goal of yours, right? Or a goal which you have decided. Fortunately, unfortunately, once you became an entrepreneur, we've not had an SIP ever, because the reality is that as an entrepreneur, you're just making enough to sustain yourself, right? And so I've not, though I've advised everybody to do it, including my own children, right? So they have their own SIPs going, but I've not. So as I said, there is a phase when I've not been doing SIPs, but I plan to get back to it, hopefully in the next couple of years.
Cool. Talking about financial planning a little more, financial independence is a goal that many people today are striving to achieve. And so, how do you define financial independence? And for you, how it has shaped your life choices?
So it is similar to the financial freedom piece, but independence, as I said, is the ability to take some hard choices. So, for example, for me, right, being an entrepreneur, becoming an entrepreneur was a large decision. I was 40 years old, so quite late at that. When I had two children, girls who were in school at that point in time, and that to going to international schools, and you knew that there would be large expenses coming up, and they'd probably want to go abroad. But I could decide to be an entrepreneur with a very limited salary, and chase my dream of building something really large, like Probe, like Scriptbox, because I had that corpus, right? So financial independence is about that ability. For some people, doesn't mean you stop working. I mean, a lot of people confuse this by saying that I'll stop working. It's about doing what work you want to enjoy, right? Even if it is not so financially remunerative. It should not be. Does not mean that what you do is not wealth accretive, is not financially remunerative, but the investment in yourself to do things differently or to do different things is the financial independence, and that includes the whole family. I don't at all for a moment suggest whoever is a breadwinner, if it's a family, that you're doing it for yourself, because especially in India, wealth is a family matter.
Right.
So the financial independence is the ability to take care of your responsibilities for you and your dependents, have enough so that you don't depend on your children, right? And we always joke about it that our generation is probably the sandwich generation, right?
Yeah.
Which because our parents were pre 91 salary levels, and so you had to sort of contribute to their well-being, and a lot of people I know do that, and you're obviously looking after the children. So this independence comes from the ability to meet all those obligations and not being an obligation on somebody else, right? So the important part is that you are truly independent forever.
Taking forward from that, even though no matter how well we plan, right, there are some hiccups that come along the way. In your financial planning, were there any large expenses that suddenly came up unaccounted for, and how did you plan for those?
Three or four of this, right? And so my mother's health was very big, large ticket, continuous expense for a few years, and I've had positive and negative surprises on the children's education front. So my elder daughter went to a college in Canada, and in spite of all the advice I give and everybody else, we underestimated it. Now she's gone. She's done her masters from the UK. You somehow feel masters will get paid for, but again, that's a large expense. We didn't specifically budget for, but it came out of the fact that my younger daughter, right, who we had planned to send abroad, actually ended up in a college in India at Ashoka University, and surprisingly, we paid less in her college than we paid for her school,
Oh,
right? So suddenly there was a positive surprise that your budgets came right, and you could do more. Then there's health, obviously, right? Health is like COVID time. You were literally running 7 8 households, right? With because your domestic help, your drivers, and whoever you were supporting, because they didn't have any income, and you are now obviously giving more without getting the required help. So I think there are different times in life that you have these unplanned, I would say, expenses, and that's how they are. And you have to recalibrate the corpus. You have to recalibrate how long you need to be earning for, and all of that. But again, without sounding salesy, get a good planner, get the professionals to work with you, because apart from the money part of the impact, it's the emotional impact which somebody needs to be your co-driver on that journey, and it's not necessarily only your spouse or your partner. an external person who's seen many people go through this is a good advisor to talk to.
So, what financial lessons have you passed on to your children and that you would like to share with others?
Two lessons specifically. One is that 20-25% of your money, of your income, if not more, has to be invested. So I'll give you an example of my own younger daughter who just started working. She's staying at home. It so happens that her job is in Bangalore and she's staying at home. So I've made her save 20% as saving. I've made her put aside 20% of her income as rental, which she pays me, which goes into Scriptbox, into investing. And obviously, my deal with her is I'll top up, right? Whatever you invest, I'll match. So it gives her the incentive to save regularly. Again, going back, so you have to save whatever maximum you can and invest it. So one is the saving habit is essential. So any budget you do, anything you plan, you put money aside in that piggy bank or that script box or the 20% first. The second is where do you invest that? Again, to my younger daughter and elder daughter, I've told them there are three buckets. First is an emergency bucket, and this is an advice I gave everybody, which is about say 6 months of expenses. Right? You might lose your job, something might happen, in their case, they don't need that because God is kind, they have privilege. But I think that's a great discipline to have. Then a certain amount for expenses you expect in the next 1 year, 2 years. You might want to buy a new iPad, you might want to upgrade your phone, you might want to go on a holiday with your friends, right? So those are expenses you need to budget and put money aside, right? And that's where the asset allocation comes in. And say, so typically we do a budget around that and say what you can afford, right? Because you have to be saving of whatever you're saving. 50% of that time has to go into long-term savings, right? Which you will not touch till you absolutely need it, and which should be ideally when you're doing something really large, right? So I think that's the discipline that a certain percentage has to be saved, and that saving has to be invested wisely. One to meet sort of your short to medium term expenses, and you keep topping up every year, right? So so you go for a holiday and you spend a lakh, so that's depleted. Now you go back to save that lakh, and that's a really important part of the lesson I've been trying to tell my children. And the third is obviously around keeping a budget. So they do keep track of the expenses. I know it's a very painful discussion for a father to have with their daughter, but I think it's the right discipline to have. That I don't want to know the details, but I want to know the buckets, right? And so that
Yeah.
and that's the piece.
So, like, apart from building this discipline of having a monthly SIP and setting aside certain percentage of your corpus, once the corpus is generated, many of our viewers also have this question like, how should I manage this, or whom should I reach out to manage this? You've yourself been a banker and a finance expert, but still, you mentioned you have your own personal experts who help you manage your expenses, your finances. So, if you can shed some light, like how or who manages your money and how did you choose them?
So I got lucky. I mean, we have the best people in the country at Scriptbox, right? The best money managers, the best wealth managers, the best wealth advisors work at Scriptbox. So I trusted them completely. That 100% of my wealth is managed through Scriptbox, and I've got great advisors. I mean, I won't take names, but they are people who to help us. So the example there is that while a good banker is a good GP, a general practitioner, but you need an expert. It could be a heart specialist. It could be a cardiologist. It could be somebody who's a pulmonologist. So, and I think that they you need that. So, my advice to anybody who needs, and whether it's 10 lakh rupees or 5 lakh rupees or getting started, investing with a purpose is important, and defining that through a financial planner, through an advisor is important, and then investing dispassionately, unemotionally for the long term. So, so as I sort of describe Scriptbox as a brand, is like a Maji, like in Maji is a boatman, right? Who helps
Yeah.
you get across troubled waters
Yes.
or safe waters. It could be a lake, it could be a river, it could be the sea. They're by your side, they're guiding your boat. You could be having a large, very expensive yacht, you could be having a small optimist boat. But it's that boatman by your side is the role. So having that person I'll give lots of analogies, who's both your seatbelt and your co-driver on this journey of yours is really, really important. So I've been lucky to have. And how did I choose them? I think trust needs to be built. So one, obviously, there's a track record. I obviously worked with them individually, personally. But how you choose one is, do you believe that they have your best interest in mind? Uh, and uh, and some of it is emotional, some of it is track record, some of it is credibility, some of it is references. So a combination of these would get you the right advisor. You need to choose wisely, because it's as important for them to grow your wealth, but more important, not to destroy it. So I think we have a lot more. And like I said, I started late because of the Harshad Mehta thing. Those scars remain with you, right? You've heard those stories. And I come across a lot of people who don't invest in the capital markets, who don't invest regularly because they've had one bad experience or some bad advisor, or somebody come and sold them a ULIP policy, or somebody's gone and sold them a toxic structured products, and they blame the entire sort of industry. And I'll carry on, and the reason I'm on this sort of rant, as I call it, today there is such a, I would say, buzz around investing in India, which is good in a way that people are experiencing it. But SEBI is regularly saying that 90% people are losing money
Yeah.
in futures and options, but people are still doing it. It's very possible that some of them will lose even more money. And then they will not blame themselves or their people who are telling them to do this, but blame the industry. And then they'll take 5, 7 years to come back, right, to actually start investing. And that's what we want to avoid. You just have to find the right person by your side who's done it before, right? Who has a track record, who has your best interest in mind, is not flamboyant, right? So again, like selling like a sales guy at Scriptbox, we are very boring money managers, right? We are wealth managers. We don't want to do anything fancy. We don't do Bitcoin. We don't. We just want to make it very easy, peaceful. Lastly, I mean, your wealth manager should be like a pillow who lets you sleep easy at night.
Great. Many young entrepreneurs look up to leaders like you after knowing about your success story. So, as we enter the last leg of our episode, what would be that final message that you would like to share with these young aspiring entrepreneurs?
I've got lots, but I'll stick to two. One is cash is king. Depends on where you come from, a background. If you come from a large corporate, or if you're a young entrepreneur just getting started, you really don't realize the value of money. Having 6 months of runway, like I was talking about expenses, same rules apply in running a company. Having at least 6 months of expenses in your bank all the time. So cracking a revenue model, getting started, whether you're funded or not funded, so that you're sleeping easy at night, right? So that I mean, you're working extremely hard. So making sure that you're not burning, forget burning yourself, but burning so much money that you're always hungry, right? So that's one big lesson, and we've learned it over time and many times. The other is that it sounds like a takya kalam, or it always takes longer, it always costs more. You go do a budgeting for building a house, you getting interior decoration done, you're working on a project, we starting this episode, it always takes longer, it always costs a little bit more. So keep that in mind, right, as you are working as an entrepreneur. And the last one is my favorite, which is most days as an entrepreneur is like boxing with the clouds, right? You're really working hard and you really put in, and you're dead tired and actually achieved little. But don't worry, there is a silver lining to that cloud, and it all become beautiful. It's a long, lonely journey, but believe me, it's worth it.
Thank you so much, Atul. It was really an informative and inspiring session that we've had today. Hope our viewers learned a lot from the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the conversation. I really enjoyed that, Swati. Thank you.
Thank you.